From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
These people are just threatening all of us with these dogs. And that woman over there, she was charging him and it bit somebody right in the face.
The dog has blood in its nose and its mouth.
And she's still standing here threatening.
Why are you letting her dog go after protesters? It's covered in blood. Today, we bring you highlights of our coverage of the standoff at Standing Rock in North Dakota, the struggle against the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline that's galvanized the largest movement of Native Americans in decades. The increasing state repression of the movement recalls the bitter legacy of genocide and land theft against Native Americans. As many across the United States celebrate Thanksgiving, many Native Americans observe the holiday as a national day of mourning. We'll air our shocking Labor Day report showing unlicensed pipeline guards unleashing attack dogs and pepper spray on Native Americans. And we'll speak to Standing Rock Sioux historian LaDonna Brave Bull Allard, who recounts the U.S. military's attack on her family more than 150 years ago.
The soldiers came on this top of the ravine and this top of the ravine and started shooting the women and children in the ravine. And one of our soldiers went out in front and broke the open so that people can continue running. So as night is falling, my grandma, Nape Hotawi, Gray Hand, she was running and she said all of a sudden she had a sharp pain in her hip and she fell down.
We'll also hear from Anishinaabe activist Winona LaDuke, Ojibwe organizer Tara Hauska, and Dallas Goldtooth of the Dakota and Dene Nations.
What we saw today is basically just another part of 500 years of colonization and aggression by a system that is predicated upon our oppression.
All that and more coming up. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Many across the United States are celebrating this Thanksgiving holiday, but many Native Americans observe it as a national day of mourning, marking the genocide against their communities and the theft of their land. We'll spend today looking at the standoff at Standing Rock in North Dakota, the struggle against the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline that's galvanized the largest resistance movement of Native Americans in decades. In Cannonball, North Dakota, members of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and representatives of more than 200 indigenous nations from across the Americas have been encamped for months to block the construction of the pipeline. It's slated to carry 500,000 barrels of crude a day from the Bakken oil fields of North Dakota through South Dakota, Iowa, and into Illinois, where it'll link up with an existing pipeline to carry the oil down to the refineries in the Gulf. The thousands of water protectors, as they call themselves, have been joined by many non-native allies, all concerned a leak could contaminate the Missouri River, which provides water for the tribe and millions of people downstream. The tribe also says the pipeline's construction across unceded Sioux Treaty land will lead to the desecration of sacred sites, including tribal burial grounds. In recent months, hundreds have been arrested after using their bodies to block construction of the pipeline and to protect the sacred sites. The movement has also spread across the country and the world as protesters have held demonstrations at banks funding the Dakota Access Pipeline. The movement has largely been ignored on this year's presidential campaign trail and by the national corporate media. But Democracy Now! Has been there on the ground covering the standoff closely. Today, we're bringing you highlights of that coverage in North Dakota. We begin with our report. Labor Day weekend. It was Saturday, September 3rd, when unlicensed Dakota Access security guards attacked water protectors trying to defend a sacred tribal burial site from destruction.
Criminals! You guys are criminals! Go get your money somewhere else!
We're standing at the construction site of the Dakota Access Pipeline. It looks like there are at least 3 bulldozers that are, to people's surprise at this moment, actually bulldozing the land. There's a helicopter above, there's security here, and hundreds of people have been marching up when they heard that the construction site is actually active right now.
Look what you're doing to him! It's not too late to go home! Where are we going to live when all this is gone?
My name is Jacob Johns.
And where are you from?
I'm from Spokane, Washington. I'm Hopi and I'm from Oahu.
And can you describe what you see, what they're doing?
They're bulldozing. They're bulldozing and preparing to install a pipeline to go underneath the river.
And above we see a helicopter.
The helicopter itself has been following us and taking pictures, and we're filming them in return.
Come on, guys! We gotta stop this! Why are we standing and watching? Get in there! Stop this!
People have gone through the fence, men, women, and children. The bulldozers are still going, and they're yelling at the men in hard hats. One man in hard hat threw one of the protesters down, and they're marching over the dirt mounds. Some of the security have dogs. The 6 bulldozers are pulling back right now. People are marching forward in their tracks. There are men, women, and children. More security trucks are pulling up. There are some protesters on horseback. Hundreds of people are coming from the main camp. They're climbing up the tracks left by the bulldozers. 6 at least I've counted that are now receding. Protesters advance as far as a small wooden bridge. Security unleashes one of the dogs, which attacks 2 of the Native Americans' horses. Security has some kind of gas. People are being pepper sprayed. Reporter from New York, what are you spraying people with?
I haven't sprayed anything, man.
But what is that?
Yeah, he just maced me in the face right now. Amy Goodman, this guy maced me in the face.
Can you show us the label?
Look, it's all over my sunglasses. Just maced me in the face. Dog bit him right now.
Dog on me. Throw the dog on me. Look at this. Look at this.
Let me say.
You throw the dog on me. No, you did it on purpose, man.
Let me say.
Over there with that dog. I was like walking, throw the dog on me straight, even without any warning, you know. Look at this. Look at this.
The dog.
Yeah, the dog did it, you know. Look at this. There. So did it.
Ma'am, your dog just bit this protester. Your dog just bit that protester. Are you telling the dogs to bite the protesters? The dog has blood in its nose and its mouth.
And she's still standing here threatening.
You can't put your blame on the dog. You're an evil woman. You can't put your blame on the dog. You will live with that.
These people are just threatening all of us with these dogs. And that woman over there, she was charging them, and it bit somebody right in the face, and then it charged at me and tried to bite me, and they're still threatening these dogs against us, and we're not doing anything.
Why are you letting her dog go after the protesters? It's covered in blood. One of the pipeline security men unleashes a dog into the crowd. Protesters respond using a flagpole and sticks to fend off the dog attacks. After the protesters said that the dog was bloody from biting them, they then pulled the dogs away, and now pickup truck by pickup truck is pulling away. We'll see what happens. The protesters are moving in to ensure that the security leaves. Let's go check on this woman. What happened?
I just saw a lot of mace, and the sweat was dripping it in. The sweat was making it run down into my eyes. I had my glasses on, and that spared me the brunt of it, but then the sweat started putting it in.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
What's your name?
Raina Crow.
And what do you think you've accomplished today?
I hope we've accomplished letting Enbridge know that the people of this nation and the people of this world, tribal or otherwise, have withdrawn their social license to pollute water, and that they need to find an honest, nonviolent way to make a living.
Where are you from?
Duluth, Minnesota. I don't know more Duluth.
I got maced twice. I got bit by a dog. I was the front line.
Where did you get bit?
I got bit on the ankle where my boot is. So I told them they needed to leave, but the guy didn't believe me. So he didn't want to listen. He stuck his hand out and he maced me. This other guy, and I think he maced a lady too. Then they tried getting the dogs on us, so I was just standing there. I wasn't really doing nothing. That dog ran up on me and it bit around my ankle.
You pushed them back, though?
Yes.
Why is this such an important fight to you?
Because water is life. Like I said, without water, we wouldn't be here. These plants wouldn't be here. There'd be no oxygen. We all die without it. I wish they'd open their eyes and have a heart to realize, you know, if this happens, we're not going to be the only ones going to suffer. They're going to suffer too.
What tribe are you with?
I'm Oglala Sioux, Full Blood.
From?
Pine Ridge Reservation.
What's your name and where are you from?
Linda Lee Bruner. I'm from Belcourt, North Dakota. I've traveled from Wichita, Kansas. I stand for my grandchildren, my next grandchildren. I already got great-grandchildren that are in the future. I know the 18-year-old and 19-year-olds that are getting ready to come here, they'll fight to the end. We're going to stay here just like in 1836. We're going to go down and wait and wait. This oil ain't going to go through.
We should all walk out together. That's a good idea. Whoever said that.
I am Elvia Ramirez. I come from Arizona, Salt River. I'm in Pima Maricopa tribe.
How old are you?
I am 13 years old.
And why are you out here today?
I am with my family because I believe right here what they're doing is wrong. This is very wrong. They should protect the water. Everybody needs water to live. Water is in us, no matter what.
What about the oil?
The oil should stay in the ground. They should just leave it because they're hurting Mother Nature. Mother Nature is important because without Mother Nature, we wouldn't be here.
No one owns this land. This land belongs to the earth. We are only caretakers. We're caretakers of the earth.
Oh. Do you feel like you won today?
We win every day when we stand in unity. We stand and we fight.
My name is Candy Mossett with the Indigenous Environmental Network.
Is this where the DAPL is being built?
Yes, this is the pipe that is leading up to the river. So what we're waiting for, or what Dakota Access is waiting for, is the easement to go underneath and bore under the water. My understanding was that with the TRO, they were supposed to completely quit construction, but I guess in the oil and gas industry, that's
there
not
were temporary restraining order.
Right. Well, there was a restraining order, and they were supposed to, we all thought, stop construction completely, but they've been coming from the west over here this whole time, these past 3 weeks, ever since you saw the first demonstrations, and obviously now this is how close they are, right across the road from where we've been barricading. So they're continuing to lay pipe up to the point of where they're waiting for the easement to go underneath where they're going to bore. So people are like, why are we going to wait for that? We're not. We're going to go out and we're going to stop the pipeline. We're going to stop it where it is. And that's what effectively has been happening the past few days in nonviolent direct action.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
What did you accomplish today?
We were protecting our water. That's what we were here to do, and that's what we did.
Where are your horses from?
Crow Creek, South Dakota.
And you came from there?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, describe the scene to us.
We protected our water, and we did a good job at doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. Special thanks to Laura Gottesdiener, John Hamilton, and Dennis Moynihan. That report was Labor Day weekend, when unlicensed Dakota Access security guards attacked Native Americans with dogs and pepper spray. Well, only hours before that attack, we interviewed Winona LeDuc of the White Earth Reservation in Minnesota, who was standing near her teepee at a nearby resistance camp.
And the governor, you know what I feel like telling the governor is that, you are not George Wallace and this is not Alabama. This is 2016 and you don't get to treat Indians like you have for those last 100 years. We're done, It'll be interesting times.
Indigenous leader Winona LaDuke. That day, September 3rd, we also sat down with Standing Rock Sioux tribal historian LaDonna Brave Bull Allard to speak about another attack against her tribe, this one on the same day 153 years before. It was on September 3rd, 1863, that the U.S. Army massacred more than 300 members of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in what's become known as the Whitestone Massacre. LaDonna Brave Bull Allard is not only the tribal historian, but also one of the founders of the Sacred Stone Camp, the first resistance camp launched on her land April 1st, 2016, to resist the Dakota Access Pipeline.
153 years ago, 52 years ago, the Whitestone Massacre happened, which the people in this community, the Cannonball community, are from descendants of that massacre. We are the survivors of that massacre. One of the things that, we always say is this massacre happened. America forgot they killed us. And we have just spending this time trying to figure out how to survive. So we were the wrong Indians that they killed at that time. The Dakota Wars were happening in 1863. And so the government put up this armed forces to go after the Isante, the Santee. And so they put this military action together. On the morning of September 3rd, our people were gathered, as we do every year at this time. We gather because it's harvest time. The fruit and vegetables are ready. It is a time when we are doing the buffalo calling. We have ceremonies to call the buffalo for the people to come to hunt so that we can prepare the meat for winter. So this is what was happening at Whitestone at that time. And so we have a large gathering of 4,000 people. And I think that's kind of unique. There's almost 4,000 people here. And so we had all of these communities coming in together to go into this trade. And as people are preparing buffalo hides and getting dry meat ready, they are also visiting, making relatives, having marriages. All of these things are happening in this camp. And so they say the soldiers are coming. And our leader said, we have never had an argument with the white people. We have only been at peace. We do not have a treaty with them. And so our people got together and said, we heard that if you take a white flag, they will honor that to talk with us. So they took a white flour sack and they put it on a stick, and our leaders all went out into the to the soldiers to say they wanted to talk.
Your grandfather was one of them?
Yes. So my grandfather was the medicine man. His name was Tatanka Ohitika, Brave Buffalo. So Brave Buffalo was among them with the chiefs. They went out to talk to the soldiers. The soldiers surrounded them and took them as prisoner of war and quartered them off from their people. And so the people were watching, and just like we are taught, automatically, if there's an enemy coming in, we gather all the children in the center, all the women. People were starting to tear down their lodges. People were trying to move in the chaos. So the first things the women did is they tied the babies to the dogs. They tied the children to the horses, and they shooed the dogs and the horses out of the camp. And then they gathered what they could, and they started running. Well, at the camp at Whitestone, they came down, and there's this ravine. And so the people started making their way down to the ravine. And it's kind of bizarre to us that these soldiers came in just as the sun was going down. And so they were going through the ravine, and the soldiers came on this top of the ravine and this top of the ravine and started shooting the women and children in the ravine. And one of our soldiers went out in front and broke the open so that people can continue running. So as night is falling, my grandma, Nape Hotawi, a gray hand, she was running, and she said all of a sudden she had a sharp pain in her hip and she fell down.
She was a child.
She was 9 years old. And she laid on that ground, and she spent the night calling, Ina, Ina, or Mom, Mom. with no answer. Everywhere she could hear the crying and screams, the songs of people dying. And as the sun came over and she could see everything that was happening, 2 of the soldiers came and grabbed her and threw her in the back of a buckboard. I am unsure of why that happened, because they went around and they killed the other wounded. Why they did not kill my grandmother, I do not know. So she laid in the buckboard as she watched the soldiers come and start killing the dogs and the babies, killing the horses, killing the wounded. They gathered up all of our property, the tents, the meat, the hides, everything we owned. And we had one section of soldiers sitting down there poking holes in the bottom of our pots. And they gathered all that and they started this great big fire, burning all our food, our homes, everything. They said that there was so much buffalo meat that they burned that tallow ran down like rivers out into the creeks. And the people ran. For 3 to 4 days they ran as the soldiers continued to chase and kill them. Part of our people came across here. This used to be a narrow crossing where they crossed, and they crossed over on this side of the river to get from the soldiers. And one of the things that we always say at this massacre is they forgot they killed us, and we weren't even the right Indians.
That river crossing that you've described, the people fleeing from the soldiers, that's where the Dakota Access Pipeline will be built?
Yes, right where the Dakota Access Pipeline is the area where our people made it across the river. It is our major river crossing there. And I will say that where this pipeline is going underneath the Missouri River is also a burial site. And so they'll be going underneath this burial site. We are very concerned because any type of motion can bring up our remains.
Standing Rock Sioux tribal historian LaDonna Bravebull Allard will be back in a minute. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Today we're looking at the ongoing standoff at Standing Rock in North Dakota, where thousands of Native American water defenders and their allies are resisting the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline over concerns that a leak could contaminate the Missouri River, which provides water for millions of people. The resistance has been met by increasing repression by hundreds of police officers from North Dakota and surrounding states, as well as by unlicensed pipeline security guards who unleashed dogs and pepper spray against Native American protectors on September 3rd. Well, Democracy Now!'s exclusive video report of that attack went viral, was viewed over 14 million times on Facebook, and was broadcast by major outlets including NBC, CBS, NPR, MSNBC, CNN, The Huffington Post, and many others. 5 days after Democracy Now! Released this on-the-ground report, Morton County issued an arrest warrant for me. The original charge against me was criminal trespass. Yet on Friday, October 14th, after Democracy Now! Returned to North Dakota to fight the charges and to continue covering the resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline, we learned that the state's attorney, Ladd Erickson, had dropped the criminal trespass charge for lack of evidence, but had filed a new charge against me, riot. This is part of Democracy Now!'s live broadcast from outside the Morton County Courthouse and Jail on the morning of October 17th, as I waited to see whether Judge John Grinsteiner would approve the new riot charge. We're broadcasting live from outside the courthouse and jail in Mandan, North Dakota, Water and land protectors, as they call themselves, report facing increasing repression amidst the ongoing resistance to the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline. Police have begun deploying military-grade equipment, including armored personnel carriers, surveillance helicopters, planes, and drones. North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple activated the National Guard in late September. Roughly 140 people have been arrested. Some report being strip-searched in custody at the Morton County Jail, even when they're facing minor misdemeanor charges. This is Dr. Sarah Jumping Eagle, a pediatrician on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, a member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe.
When I was taken to the jail, first I was taken by a corrections officer, transported from the protest site to the Morton County Jail. And then when they took me in there, you know, they had to take some basic information. And then one of the things that they do is have you go into a small room, and there was a female officer there, and we had to take my clothes off, and then I don't know, basically
cavity search?
No, not a cavity search, but I had to squat and cough. That's what she said. I had to squat and cough and then put the orange suit on.
So you were put in an orange jumpsuit?
Yeah, I was put in an orange jumpsuit, and then I was held there for several hours. And initially, you know, my family didn't know where I was, or didn't, you know, they heard about it pretty quickly, and were able to come and bond me out or bail me out. I don't know what you call it, but I was in there for several hours.
How did it make you feel?
It made me feel, you know, it made me think about, you know, my ancestors and what had they gone through. And this was in no way a comparison to what we've survived before. So it just made me feel more determined about what I'm doing and why I'm here.
That's Dr. Sarah Jumping Eagle, a pediatrician, member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. She was charged with disorderly conduct. LaDonna Braveville Allard, who founded the first resistance camp, the Sacred Stone Camp, on her own land April 1st, says her daughter was recently arrested, taken into custody at the Morton County Jail, strip-searched in front of multiple male officers, then left for hours in her cell naked and freezing before the guards finally gave her clothes to wear. LaDonna Allard says her daughter was repeatedly asked by guards, "Who is your mother?" which Allard sees as an indication that her daughter was targeted because of who she is. Cody Hall from Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota says he was also strip-searched after he was arrested Friday, September 9th, held for 3 days without bail or bond, and then charged with 2 misdemeanors.
As I exited out of the vehicles and entered Morton County, I came up an elevator, and as the elevator door opened up, I was met with state police. And then, you know, of course, Morton County people were there to book people, but and then from there started the process of the booking, and then again, you know, went into a private room where they asked you to, you know, get naked. You know, they had my arms, they you know, kind of like a extend your arms out, and you're fully naked, and they have you, you know, lift up your genitals and, you know, bend over, you know, cough. And so it's really one of those tactics that they try to break down your mentalness of everyday life, because not every day do you wake up and say, hey, I'm going to get, you know, naked and have somebody search me today, you know. That's a private, you know, that's a private feeling for you, you know, when you get naked. So.
And 4 days later, when you were finally released, they hadn't allowed you to go out on bail or bond for those 4 days. You came before a judge in the orange jumpsuit?
Yes, I sat in the court office in my orange jumpsuit, locked, you know, still, you know, handcuffed, exited out of the courtroom, and as I left the courtroom, there were 20 or so state police, all in their bulletproof vests, everything, just looking, you know, like you know, like they're going into action of some sort. And then they literally had a line from the courtroom to the door that connects you to the county jail. And my mother walked out with me, and as we got to the door, they were opening the door up, and as I looked behind me, my mother and I, all of the cops then proceeded to kind of swarm, like make, that big wall, as I entered in, which was, again, an overkill, but that too, though, to show a dominant force. That was Cody Hall, who was arrested on 2 misdemeanors, held for 4 days, strip searched here at the Morton County Jail just behind us. Well, for more on the resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline, the police crackdown, we're joined by 2 guests. Winona LaDuke, Native American activist, executive director of the group Honor the Earth. She lives and works on the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. And we're joined by Tara Houska, national campaigns director for Honor the Earth. She's a Ojibwe from the Couchiching First Nation. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Winona, let's start with you. We have spoken to you intermittently through this resistance. Where does it stand now?
Well, as far as we are in, I'm just looking at the big picture. Right now, there is about 900,000 barrels per day of oil coming out of this state, and they project that into 2019. And so what I'm trying to understand is that if that's all they have, and it's already going out, why do they need another pipeline of 570,000 barrels of oil per day? In other words, they're already meeting all the demand. For the next 2 years, that's all the oil that's in there. And this is really what we call this is the Dakota Excess Pipeline. The Dakota Excess? The Dakota Excess Pipeline. This is really about spites. It's really about spite. What do you mean? It's just really about hating. It's just really about trying to put something in across these tribes. It's exactly what the chairman and you said before. If they wanted this pipeline so damn bad, they should have put it north of Bismarck. And they should not have violated the law. The whole pipeline was approved through something called the Nationwide Permit number 12, which means they could cut it into a lot of little pieces and never do an EIS and pretend like, that's intended for like if you have like a pipeline from a school to the water service center or something like that. It's not intended for a 1,600-mile pipeline. Total misuse of the law, and the president really needs to intervene and uphold the law. Tara Houska, you have been following these protests and the level of militarization in response to the protests. You were there on Saturday. We spoke to you at one of these peaceful marches of hundreds of Native Americans.
Yeah, we've seen this incredibly militarized response from North Dakota that has been so over the top in reaction to Native Americans peacefully protesting, praying for the land, praying for the water. These are women and children that are out there. We saw the most recent one on Indigenous Peoples Day. They had Native Americans out there praying for the land. They put a teepee up in front of the actual pipeline route, and they called that a riot. There's nobody there rioting. They're doing that as North Dakota is doing that as it's increasing the amount of militarized response, militarized force. They're calling in other sheriffs from other states. They're upping this incredible amount of police force for no reason.
Well, all for this pipeline. Winona, who profits from this pipeline? Who owns this pipeline?
Well, Enbridge, we just spent 4 years fighting Enbridge. And Enbridge and Marathon Oil just bought a third of this pipeline.
And you fought them in northern Minnesota.
We fought them in northern Minnesota, and in August they announced that they had canceled the Sandpiper, which was the 640,000 barrel per day oil pipeline, pipeline from here, fracked oil pipeline they wanted to put across our territory. We defeated that pipeline, and they came out here and moved out here. But, I think that the whole context that you're talking about is really important. This is pretty much the deep north. That's what it is. Nobody's been paying attention to what's happening in North Dakota. They've been flying over it, hopes it work out for y'all. And in the meantime, Indian arrests have been consistent. There's no infrastructure. Native people are treated like, third-class citizens. Suicide rates, everything's going on. And, the governor's acting like this is Mississippi up here, and you can just do that. And now people are finally noticing. But it's been going on for a long time up here. And this is, finally a flashpoint where people are saying that's enough. We're not going to let you take our water. We're not going to let you destroy that which is ours.
After Ferguson, the whole country saw the level of militarization of local police departments. You were there, Tara, where there was an MRAP. There's a armored personnel carrier at this peaceful protest where you offered the police water, clean water, right?
We did. Indigenous women went up there and we offered the police water, sage, and sweetgrass. Yep. And, trying to show that we are peaceful, that we are doing this for not only our children, but their children, too. This is a people issue. Water is a people issue.
What inspires you most, Tara?
I think it's incredibly inspiring to go out there and to see, a line of police like that and an MRAP. And, we've seen sound cannons, there's helicopters flying overhead, and there's this little group of Native American people and their allies that are out there standing there defiant and, trying to defend their people and their land.
I want to talk about this issue of strip searching. Winona, it is astounding to hear that even people like the pediatrician for Standing Rock, Dr. Sarah Jumping Eagle, was strip searched for disorderly conduct. Is this typical?
I would say that generally North Dakota is not good to Native people and is really behind the times in terms of constitutional and civil rights. For many, many years, our people have had an undue burden of the legal system against them, and nobody has really paid attention. The ACLU, for instance, American Civil Liberties Union, had one person that covered both North and South Dakota. A little understaffed, I'd say. And that's how things develop like this. But it's wrong. It's wrong.
Do they have a right to strip search people for disorderly conduct?
I think that this state is reading the law as broadly as it can when it comes to violating the constitutional rights to free speech of these people. I think that they, just like Winona said, they have a very long history of treating folks in this manner, and it's now just kind of coming to light, right? We're seeing yourself being, as a journalist, being arrested when you're out there on the front lines. You're seeing Shailene Woodley, a famous actress, that's out there being arrested as she's filming it, live streaming it, back to her, RV. This has been happening to Native people in this state for a very, very long time, and it's just now reaching the mass. People are looking at this saying, here's a Native American ceremony, and there's hundreds of police officers with a militarized response behind them. It's madness.
Why do you continue to resist with this level of force against you, a raid against you?
Because this is what these folks are standing here for. What I'm standing here for is the protection of water and the protection of the future generations. That matters more than any, criminal trespass or these, attempts to suppress and keep our voices down. We're seeing the police represent and protect a company interest more than human beings and people. These are U.S. citizens that are all here standing together, and seeing their rights violated, seeing young children afraid of the police, that shouldn't happen, but it is.
That's what people were saying to the police on Saturday when they lined up all in riot gear with the MRAP, the armored personnel carrier. They were saying, who are you protecting? Why aren't you protecting us?
They're clearly protecting Dakota Access. They're protecting this profit interest over people and saying that we're the danger.
The system's gone totally rogue, is what's happened. The fact is that you should not be protecting. How far are you going to go with this pipeline? How far are you going to push these people? How far are you going to push all of us for these pipelines? It's way too militarized. It's called a mine-resistant armored personnel carrier. That's what it is, an MRAP, a mine-resistant. At what point did you need a mine-resistant armored personnel carrier in North Dakota?
And seeing, local schools doing, lockdowns when these protests are happening. We saw that emergency alert, which is typically reserved for an Amber Alert for a child that's been taken, for protesters, warning in the area, it's frightening people.
This is just
like
started,
we're somehow scary.
On Saturday, we kept getting on all of our phones emergency alert, and then it would say something like protesters in the area.
Yeah, they're totally trying to demonize us, is what they're trying to do. And the fact is that the people that are out here, are trying to protect the water. They aren't making any new water in North Dakota. And this is the only water we got, same water as when dinosaurs were here, and this is what we're going to need to drink, and our descendants are going to need to drink, and all our animals, our horses, all our animals need that water too. And this is a chance to protect that water. North Dakota's already done enough to kind of mess up the water out here with all that fracking waste and starting to pretend that that's working out okay for us. It's not. It's time to stop. It's time to stop and protect the water.
There are a lot of people concerned that this is escalating to a very bad situation. Are you concerned about this?
Yes, I'm concerned that they are escalating it. The police are who's escalating it. Our people have consistently been praying. Our people have consistently engaged in nonviolent direct action. And, we had a forum, in Bismarck this last week, and it was very well attended, because I think people in Bismarck want to know why all these cops are out there, what is going on, you know, why these people are coming in here. So, you know, I'm saying to people of Bismarck, people in North Dakota, we're here because it matters. I'm from northern Minnesota, and bad things happen in North Dakota and head my way, whether they're pipelines or emissions from your coal plants. You know, affects all of us. So, you know, it is time to say our civil rights, our constitutional rights are all being violated.
Winona, you're leaving here in just a few hours to go back to Minnesota to fight another pipeline?
That is right. I also have to say hello to my grandchildren and my children. They've been asking me to return. But, you know, what I would say is that, so we're facing this other line, Line 3, it's called Enbridge Line, 760,000 barrels per day of tar sand pipeline proposal. Same route, you know, we defeated the Sandpiper, which was proposed, a brand new pristine route, as opposed to the 6 pipeline wide, aging pipeline infrastructure in northern Minnesota that goes around across Highway 2. Enbridge now wants 760,000 barrel per day pipeline called Line 3, and it's their single largest project. So I'm going home, hearings are starting on that. So I have to face that. And you know, that's the one that's going into Wisconsin. That's why Dane County was also out here, is because they're facing the biggest pipeline, tar sands pipeline ever. It's a twin of that, you know, and they're and with the bad governor and you know, doesn't want to protect the people of Wisconsin. That's why he sent those people out here too. But they are projecting they're going to have a big battle on that Line 66 going through Wisconsin, as well as in, you know, northern Minnesota. You know, and I told Enbridge, I had a meeting with them, I said, we know how to camp too. We know how to camp too, you know, and we aren't going to let you get that pipeline, you know. They didn't get the last one. They didn't get the Sandpiper, and they're not going to get Line 3. And so they should move on. Enbridge itself, you know, big investor in this, they have a $4 billion wind portfolio. I'm like, put some wind up, we'd like you. Do something real. Don't call this energy, you know, security, national energy security for the future, energy self-sufficiency. That's a pipeline. That's not helping anybody, except for those oil companies. Wind, solar, efficiency. These houses out here are just freezing in the winter. People freeze to death because they don't have adequate infrastructure in their houses. They got a 50-year-old health clinic. Do something for people if you're going to invest out here.
Tara Haskell, what is it like to be on the front lines of these protests?
When you're out there, you are in a very rural place. I mean, North Dakota is a very rural state, and there's very limited cell service. There's very limited connection and connectivity to the outside world. And when you're out there and you're facing a, you know, line of police that are armed with assault rifles, there's an MRAP, there's whatever military, there's helicopters overhead, it is very scary. You think about what happens if someone just accidentally, you know, gets too excited and thinks that somehow, you know, maybe we're praying too hard or whatever it is, and they shoot. You know, that's how it feels when you're there. And the police are a scary presence. It's not a comfortable feeling to know that you are actually afraid for your life from the police because they're protecting a pipeline and they're protecting the interests of Dakota Access. It's a very scary feeling, and it's one that I think, you know, more people need to be aware of, and they need to understand that we've reached a point now where we've got a state actively and openly protecting the interests of big oil, and we've got a Congress that's directly controlled. You know, there's so many campaign donations that come from big oil, and we see a Congress that deregulates the oil industry again and again and again.
That was Tara Haskell, National Campaigns Director for Honor the Earth. She's Ojibwe from the Cochiching First Nation. And before that, Anishinaabe activist Winona LaDuke, co-founder of Honor the Earth. Well, only hours after that broadcast, I learned Judge John Grinsteiner had refused to sign off on the riot charges against me, a major victory for press freedom. But since that victory, protesters and journalists have continued to get arrested in North Dakota. More than 400 people have been arrested. When we come back, we'll be speaking about the increasing repression against the resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline. Stay with us.
Time for my people, one time. This is our time. This is our shine. Yeah, yeah, musical vigilante. I pray they understand me. I took my pain and then I turned them to a nanny. I do this for my mama, I'm rapping for my granny. I'll take a native story, turn them to a Grammy. Musical alchemy, I see the world in panoramic. Young, educated native, make a white man panic. Lakota lead away.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Today we're looking at the ongoing standoff at Standing Rock in North Dakota, where thousands of Native American water defenders and their non-Native allies are resisting the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Well, in recent months, the repression against the water protectors and journalists covering the movement has continued to intensify. The state of North Dakota has approved $10 million to police the ongoing protest. And Morton County Sheriff Kyle Kirkmeyer has called in hundreds of deputies from neighboring states. North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple has also activated the National Guard. Riot police with military-grade equipment have attacked the Native American protectors with pepper spray, tear gas, beanbag rounds, rubber bullets, and sound cannons called LRADs. That's long-range acoustic device. Water protectors also report near-constant surveillance from police planes and helicopters. Over 400 people have been arrested so far, and many report being subjected to strip searches while in the Morton County Jail in North Dakota. Well, on October 31st, we spoke with Dakota and Diné Nation activist Dallas Goldtooth of the Indigenous Environmental Network about a violent police raid on a frontline camp established at the site of the same sacred tribal burial ground where unlicensed Dakota Access security guards attacked Native Americans with dogs and pepper spray on September 3rd. Dallas Goldtooth began by telling us about shocking video footage that emerged from the day of the raid of a man who worked with the Dakota Access Pipeline. He was a pipeline guard, but he was wearing a bandana covering his face, carrying a rifle, apparently attempting to infiltrate a group of water protectors.
Thanks for having me on, Amy. That moment I was there when this gunman, was cornered into the middle of this pond nearby, and it was a very terrifying moment for a lot of us watching. I mean, to see this man pointing an assault rifle at our water protectors, and I think that many blessings and gratitude to some of the military veterans within our security from within our Oceti-Sakowin camp who stepped up to negotiate and to de-escalate this man, to really talk to him to make sure that he did not hurt anybody until the Bureau of Indian Affairs police officers could show up. Your description is accurate. Individuals, our security teams on the ground, noticed this man driving erratically, driving at high speeds through a crowded street, through the crowded highway, and they did their very best to incapacitate the vehicle and did their very best to de-escalate the situation, which they were successful in doing. I think that...
Explain who you understand he is.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we found two documents that listed him as a Dakota Access worker, and he himself, as I've understood, to even our security stated that he worked for Dakota Access, and so it was pretty straightforward. And I think that he's a security contractor that has been hired by Dakota Access to guard its equipment, from what I believe, or at least to protect the workers or whatever it may be. I think that it's pretty terrifying to know that Dakota Access has infiltrators within our camp, is paying for individuals like this, armed individuals, to create situations of escalation, potentially creating very, very dangerous situations. We don't know what his intention could have been. He could have, fired upon police, creating a situation where the police think it's coming from our protectors when it's not. I mean, it goes hand in hand with this series of mysterious situations that really creates a situation where we have to feel suspicious about what Dakota Access intentions are. And it just clearly paints that Dakota Access has no regard for common decency or any kind of corporate responsibility. And it's really surprising that people are still investing in this company.
Has Dakota Access Pipeline responded to this video?
From what I understand, the initial response from Dakota Access is that they state that this individual does not work for Dakota Access, even though he had clear identification as a Dakota Access worker.
I mean, it's that you see the ID, it says Kyle Thompson. Is that right?
Yes, yes. His name's on it. The insurance that found in the truck belongs to Dakota Access. You know, he has an ID card with DAPL written on it. I mean, how much more information, evidence do you need?
And did he say what his intentions were as people surrounded him, as the police, the Bureau of Indian Affairs police, arrested him?
There's a variety of accounts, but it was from what I understood, that was told to me that he was tasked with also identifying, being within the crowd, watching internally with the crowd, and that there was some suggestion that he might have been tasked with instigating some sort of violence from within the crowd and to garner a reaction from law enforcement. I mean, that's just what I've heard from different folks that were talking with him in that moment to de-escalate the situation.
Now, if you could talk about the fire that was set, where did it happen, and what you understand was its origin?
Now, this happened last night. This was 2 nights ago. It was just to the immediate west of the Oceti Sakowin camp, across Highway 1806. There was some mysterious incident of a vehicle that came out of nowhere that was almost acting as a distraction, was making spitting donuts in the middle of the road, and then it sped off to the south. And immediately after that, the flames were seen on top of the hill to the west. There's a lot of there's documented footage that what appears to be a drip line, which is from what I understand is a technique used in firefighting. I mean, it was very, very clear that that brush fire that happened was an act of arson by unknown individuals. But given the recent events with the Dakota Access worker, given the escalation of law enforcement, that a lot of fingers are pointing towards Dakota Access that as being a culprit behind this late fire. And thank God that the wind was pushing away from the camp. The fire spread pretty large. And the thing that's most disturbing to me is this, Amy, is that when on October 27th, when the police attacked our peaceful protectors at the Frontline Treaty Camp, the excuse they used to move upon that camp was so that they could clear a barricade that we set up, a temporary barricade that we set up, so that emergency services could be delivered to the Oceti Sakowin camp, our main camp. That their reason for moving on, using rubber bullets and pepper spray and concussion grenades upon our water protectors was so that they could have access to deliver emergency services, ambulances, and fire equipment, if needed, to the main camp. So why is it that a number of days later, when a fire actually does happen, they refuse? The Morton County Sheriff ignores the calls and pleas for help and does not send any ambulances or fire trucks to the place that they stated that they need to get to? Why is it that there was no delivery of any kind of services until 6 hours later by the National Guard, who brought in a helicopter to drop water on a fire that had at that point already been put out? Why is it that Bureau of Indian Affairs officers who were on site with a medical emergency service, with firefighting equipment, who were not allowed to combat that fire without explicit permission from Morton County? They never received that permission. They asked. Morton County never gave them the permission to fight that fire. They just let it burn. I mean, it's obvious collusion between Morton County and the Dakota Access Pipeline. And when that collusion is causing a very, very dangerous situation for our water protectors and for the main camp that houses women, children, elders, and just people that care and love for the land and are there for one sole purpose, to protect the water.
Dallas, we got word that a horse had to be put down after being shot with rubber bullets by police. Is this true?
That is true. When the police moved ahead to clear out the frontline camp to the far east, a number of our warriors, our horseback riders, actually, it was a really beautiful moment. is we had a wall of police backed by armored personnel carriers, and there was Humvees up on the hill with snipers on top of them aimed at our water protectors, and we're being pushed back, and batons are being swung, cracking over the heads and arms of our water protectors. And then we look to the east, and over the hills to the east comes a herd of a couple hundred buffalo bison roaming, like stampeding towards the police line. And it was like a beautiful moment because people saw this herd of buffalo, and this like cheer came up from the crowd because it was like this, like almost like our fight was being recognized by the four-legged nation of the bison. And immediately behind them came some horseback riders, some young riders, men and women, who were actually guiding these buffalo towards the police line in an act of resistance and defiance. The police immediately responded by flying a helicopter extremely low. They were like flying like 30 feet off the ground to scare the buffalo off. And then they deployed ATVs to attack the horseback riders. They were shot with rubber bullets. They were shot. There was concussion grenades that were fired at the horseback riders. One of the horseback riders was pulled off their horse, and sadly, one horse was injured so badly by the police that it had to be put down. And so those horseback riders have since been honored and have been given war deeds and recognized as warriors, and have been given honors as warriors because of the deeds that they did that day.
Dallas, before you go, can you give us the overall context of why, what happened on Thursday and Friday, why the escalated police presence, the roadblocks, the MRAP, the LRAD, you know, the sound cannons, the armored vehicles, what is taking place now? Where is the building of the pipeline happening? And has, as the Standing Rock Sioux Tribal Chair Dave Archambault said on Democracy Now! Friday, has the ask called for the Justice Department to intervene to stop the pipeline from moving forward?
We haven't heard any response from the Department of Justice to intervene to protect our civil rights on the ground as water protectors. There's been silence on that end. And right now, we're in a dire situation, Amy. Like, the pipeline is literally within miles of the Missouri River. I mean, they can't, at this point, cannot cross the Missouri River, but we need to do everything in our power to keep it from getting to that place. And so with that in heart, we had established a frontline camp, a treaty camp, right on the Dakota Access easement, on Dakota Access, what they call their own land, but really is our land as Oceti-Sakowin people. We enacted a form of eminent domain, claiming the land back for ourselves as Oceti-Sakowin folks. And we set up a beautiful encampment on that piece of property, which severely threatened Dakota Access and obviously Morton County Sheriff for their intents to build this pipeline. And so they came in with a large force. And you described, you know, a lot of the equipment that was there, and it was terrifying. I mean, we had elders, women, and children who were put at severe risk because of the actions of law enforcement. A lot of folks know the Ponca leader, Casey Camp. She stood in defiance and peaceful prayer in front of an armored personnel carrier, because she loved the land and wanted to protect the Missouri River, not just for the Standing Rock Sioux Nation, but for all nations and all people and the millions of people who depend on the Missouri River for drinking water. So this movement is not founded out of hate for the police officers or for the workers themselves, but out of love for the land and for all of us as human beings. That's why we're there. That's not our enemy. Is not the worker. Our enemy is not the police. It's the corporations that are hell-bent on poisoning Mother Earth and disconnecting ourselves even further from the sacred integrity of the land and the water.
That's Dallas Goldtooth of the Dakota and Diné Nations. He works with the Indigenous Environmental Network. Special thanks to Laura Gottesdiener, John Hamilton, and Dennis Moynihan. To view all our coverage of the Dakota Access Pipeline resistance and the standoff at Standing Rock, go to democracynow.org. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Nermeen Sheikh, Carla Wills, Laura Gottesdiener, Dina Guzder, Sam Alcoff, Robbie Karen, Hani Massoud, Sharina Nadura, and Andre Lewis. Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, and Paul Huckabee are engineers. Special thanks to John Hamilton, Dennis Moynihan, Becca Staley, Miriam Barnard, Julie Crosby, Hugh Gran, David Prude. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.